Okay, so when you look at this idea of the American political system, several of you mentioned like this idea that it, while not circular, it's trying to be a circle, and that is probably the key thing from the very beginning. That this is a process that's never over. There are always winners. There are always losers. There is never a situation happy about anything. And so, I mean, the only president in the history of our country to get all electoral votes ever was President Washington. You know what I mean? So there's just there's never really a situation where everybody's going to be satisfied, and I think that's why I really like it, because there's a lot of times there's not a right or a wrong, and in many ways our political system is kind of like a game. You know, I'm not much of a sports person, but I often feel like politics is very similar to sports, because it's always that, you know, at the end of the season, like you guys will watch, a lot of you will watch the Super Bowl on Sunday, and your team might win, your team might lose. Is that going to stop you from watching next year? No, I'm just like, no. I mean, if you like football, you're going to keep watching, even though you don't get your desired end. That's kind of the difference in politics, is because a lot of times in our political system as voters, when we don't get our way, then we tend to disengage. And so we want to, you know, just try to understand like all of that behavior. Okay? At the top, before we begin, I want to differentiate two words. Okay? Government and politics are not the same thing. This course, according to the College Board, is called United States Government and Politics. Okay? What does this word make you think of? Government. Capitol Hill, regulations, the system. Okay. That's what you guys, government is Big Brother. Government is the institution. It is our three branches of government. They are the ones that create our policies. They create our regulations. They're Big Brother if you're cynical. That's what government is. Politics is a little bit broader. Does this word give you any kind of feeling? Like, Katie, does this word, when I say politics, does that make you, does it have a connotation to you? Does it? What? Like what? Like if I say the word politics, does it seem like a positive word, a negative word, or nothing?
Negative.
Makes you feel okay. What about you, Elizabeth? Why? Like people complain. Absolutely. Mitchell, what about you?
I think it should be a little more negative.
Why?
Like she said, it's like always just, you know, they
It's arguing, fighting. But again, that's what our system's built on, right? This idea that there are always winners and always losers. The classically accepted definition of politics, here you go, it's super, super fancy. Who gets what and how they get it. That's it. That's what politics is. It's the study of what people are trying to acquire and the methods that they try to acquire that. Okay? So, you guys, I mean, that can relate to a 2-year-old. 2-year-olds have an objective. There's something that they want, and they have a methodology to achieve that. You know, some of you in this classroom are like, want to get a really good grade, and so you have this strategy for doing that. Others are like, whoops, I think maybe I'm supposed to be doing this, so you've got a different kind of strategy. You know, you can hate America and work within the political system, or hate America and try to blow with that. Both of those are very political behaviors, right? So it's a broader kind of sense, but both of them go together, okay? So we're going to start right here. In the American political system, everything originates from participants. We are a democratic form of government. We're not a true democracy because we don't participate in all decision making, but because decision making ultimately springs from us and originates from us, that's where it has to start. We participate in 2 capacities. You participate as an there we go, or as a member of a group. So when we say as an individual, that could mean as a voter, as a person that makes campaign contributions, as a person that puts signs in my front yard, as a person that attends rallies and tries to offer support to people, as a person that at lunch sits around and talks about candidates that I like or issues that I like. Like as an individual being engaged. It could also be as a person that's running for office. You know, we have this field of people right now that say, I think I might want to be president or governor or congressman or senator. They are participating as individuals. They're telling us a bunch of stuff about what they want the system to look like, but currently they're not part of the government. Or they might be part of the government, but they're trying to continue to be part of the government, so they're functioning in that capacity as an individual. You can also participate as a member of a group, but make yourself a note. I don't mean a formal group like an organized political group or an organized interest. I mean a group that you identify with. Like if you were going to describe yourself, some of you would say, I'm Christian. Some of you would say, I'm Asian. Some of you would say, I'm a Texan. Some of you would say, I am, whatever it is. So it's your demographics. It's the people that you feel like you're a part of. Because I am a middle-class mom, that kind of lumps me in with other middle-class moms, and there's certain commonalities that we have. Doesn't mean I agree with all of them, right, by any means. It's a pretty big, broad group. But there are certain things that tend to be intrinsically important to all of us. Because I'm a teacher. Yes, teachers can be an organized group, but that's kind of like a demographic that I identify with. And there's certain commonalities that teachers tend to want. Inputs are just our opinions. It's our feelings, it's our thoughts, it's our what we're trying to get. Did I spell opinion? I don't know if I can spell it right. Yep. So it's it's all the attitudes and the things that we're exploring. And starting in this unit, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to start looking at all the different ways that we can participate as individuals and what things might we try to throw out there and put out there. But the thing is, we have a lot of different individuals in our country, and we have a lot of different groups, so these inputs are going to be all over the place. There's going to be all different kinds of opinions about what should happen with immigration, what should happen with education reform, what should happen with school lunches. It can be a huge issue, or it can be really tiny and only affect a lot of people. Then we come down to linkage institutions. Okay? There are 4 kinds of linkage institutions. These are the things through which we communicate with our government. Yes, you can pick up the phone and you can directly call your congressman, okay? But most inputs are going to be communicated through a larger vehicle to our government, but it's filtered through them, okay? Can you tell what they are? Political parties. This is my horrible picture of the media. This stands for elections. And this down here stands for interest groups. Interest groups, for those of you that aren't familiar, those kind of became more in vogue in the 60s and 70s. People started getting pretty disenchanted with our political process in general, and parties started declining. But that didn't mean that people weren't politically active. They just thought, they became more focused on particular issues. So interest groups are things like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, the National Rifle Association, the American Association of Retired People. I am not exaggerating when I say there are literally thousands of interest groups in America. Typically, they tend to be more issue-focused. They still communicate our opinions, but rather than very broadly saying this is everything we stand for, it's just it's a usually more narrow kind of outlet. All right, so our inputs are communicated. Sometimes we join, we make sure they know what we think, and then down here, the policy agenda is going to be shaped. Policy agenda is just, it's the task that we have set for the government. It's the list of priorities where we've said, government, this is something you need to do. What do you think about this? How do you feel about this? So you might have a whole bunch of different inputs that'll get filtered differently, and down here, this policy agenda, it might be full of conflicting ideas. And so the government's woo, we might need to do something about that. Or it might be very aligned. It might be after 9/11, people were pretty much on the same page, and so that agenda was really very specific. And so government, they didn't have a ton of options. It was very clear, we need you to do this. But who created the policy agenda? Well, who did it come from originally? Don't be afraid, say it. You're loud, come on. Who? Yeah, the participants, the people. It comes from us. Now, can we be manipulated? You bet. Can individuals put all kinds of information out there to influence other participants? Yes. Can an office holder as an individual go out and participate? So, like, you could have, like for this next year, President Obama is not subject to re-election. And so the last year of a presidency is always super interesting. A lot of times presidents start caring less about public opinion because they don't need to worry about it as much anymore. And so, yes, he is a member of the government, but as an individual, he can still offer all kinds of opinions out there and hope to shape future elections, shape the direction of his party, shape potential interest groups in the future. But in his capacity as president, when he makes decisions, he's not shaping the policy agenda. He's shaping it as a person that's out there communicating that. And I know that that seems kind of like semantics, but it does matter. Because if government creates the policy agenda, then you're not a democratic form of government. Because then government is saying, this is what we're going to do. So that's like at its extreme when Stalin says, we're going to move from being an agricultural nation to being an industrialized nation. Get on the bus, let's go. Like, so that's not, like, ultimately it has to come from us, okay? So policy agenda, what we have tasked the government with. You are going to be more sophisticated, and you're no longer going to call this the 3 branches of government. You're going to be super fancy, and you're going to call it policy making institutions. And the reason is, it's important for you to understand that we don't create policy. Interest groups don't create it. Parties don't create it. It is the people who have been entrusted to be in government that ultimately create the policy. So we have a Congress, and we have courts, and we have a president, a vice president, and then this word, bureaucracy. Mateo, what's bureaucracy mean? Do you know?
Not really sure.
No? Jake, what do you think? Awesome. What does that mean? Okay, do you have a feeling about the word when you hear bureaucrats?
The people in what?
Okay. Mateo?
Maybe they're like sort of the representatives from policy-making institutions in a way.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah, when a group of people are trying.
Okay. This is a new word. Okay. Thank you, Austin. Bureaucracy are all the people that are charged with enforcing the law that are unelected. Hi.
Hi, sorry. This
Okay.
is my teacher in the spotlight.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, anytime. Thanks. Okay, so bureaucrats are people that are charged with enforcing the law, but they're not elected. So the Secretary of State is a bureaucrat. The people that work in the Social Security office are bureaucrats. People that work for the Federal Reserve are bureaucrats, because those are all parts of the government. They're charged with carrying the law out. Remember, we said that the executive branch enforces the law, but the president can't hop in his car and drive all over the country and do that. So you have like thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are doing that. So they're part of the executive branch, but they're contributing to all of this decision making, even though they're not necessarily accountable through any kind of election or appointment. Okay. All right. The result of what they do or don't do is called public policy, which is a very fancy way to say everything the government says and does. Ta-da! Okay, so back here, the policy agenda becomes, we have an immigration crisis in our country, and there's all kinds of debating between the president and the Congress and potentially a court case that